Hello and welcome to Sim.bc, where it right now is 17:27 in that evening. And today, mates, we're getting straight into it because today it's finally day to review our little project about a founder's problem, about the startup implication, if you so will. A video or a concept, an idea I didn't think was gonna make it, past 30 seconds of a video, because I was like, well, a founder's problem, what is it really? I mean, if you really think about it, what is a founder's problem? But I dug a little deeper, I got into the subject and I tried to distinguish between the different things that there is about a startup that you actually can think about. Turns out there are lots of things. I even had to exclude some things to actually, get going and not only get stuck in this founder's problem for the rest of the year, to be honest, because there are so many tidbits that you can actually think about when it comes to a startup, or rather a founder's problem, a startup, starting your own business. There are like 1,000 variables that you need to take into consideration. But today we're reviewing the entire project, and as per usual, mates, that includes, what did I learn? What am I taking away from this experience? What did I think about it? What did you think about it if you shared any comments along the line? And that's pretty much it. No, but that will actually take quite some time to go through the different points as well, to see if we can recollect some interesting things that are, key when it comes to the discussion of a founder's problem. So, summarizing the comments that has been taking place over the course of the videos, mainly positive, I would say. Some say it's interesting, some were arguing behind, well, is this really what a startup is for? Is this really the terminology you should use? But overall, it has been a very positive response towards the video process and towards the project overall. We of course started with, the project introduction, just talking generally about that, you will need to put in the time, which has been a general theme over the course of all of the videos, because when you get down to it, the one thing that's actually, what you would say, is the key process here, the key point over all of the videos, is that it's so important that you put in the time. I mean, it's crucial. I probably can't stress that point enough, that you don't only come up with the idea, that you don't only sit in your, wherever you sit, in your attic, in your basement, in your 5-star hotel, wherever it is, in your villa. If you only have an idea and it doesn't get further than that, then it doesn't matter how good the idea is if it never will get off the ground. So putting in the time was something that I pushed, or what should we say, a particular topic that I thought was very important and very interesting when starting this project off. And as we saw when we moved into the first point then, or arguably the second point if you include the introduction or not, is that we came to the discussion around 20% of is the idea and 80% is the execution. So not only that you put in the time, not only that you live and breathe your entire organization, your startup, that you put in all of your spare time into the startup, and probably a lot of your professional time as well. No. It's not only putting in the time that we're going to yield results. You also have to take into consideration the execution of how you put in the time, Not only a great idea, not only finding the time, but also how are you utilizing this time? Also something I would argue is key when it comes to actually make a successful startup, because this will be the building blocks on which you will place your entire business upon. This is the foundation that you're trying to stabilize, and the foundation that you're trying to create from, thin air. Nobody's probably going to help you. Nobody's going to be inclined with saying, I've thrown some money at that just because I want to. No. You probably need to put in the time and make it, execute it well as well. Wow, that were many wells, but you need to execute the time you put in as well. It's equally as important. Then we went into something that was more of an interesting point from my point of view, which was basically, you need to be able to work with a passion of yours in order to, get it off the ground and actually invest this time that we were talking about when it comes to execution and so on and so forth. You need to put in the actual time so that you can get it off the ground. But by doing that, you probably need to work with something that you're very passionate about, so that you actually do put in the time, and so you don't just wake up one morning and say that, this is boring. I know it's profitable, I know it's good, but I might take the day off today. No, 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 no. You want to work with something that you're very passionate about simultaneously as it's something that can yield you profit, simultaneously as it is something in which you have a good idea, simultaneously, yeah, there are many layers here, as it is something that you can execute well and have some background, what you would say, research in, some knowledge behind. And that is working with your passion then. And the trade-off between, well, if I'm working with my passion, can I actually start working with it as a business? And what happens if I lose my passion? Yet again, I took up the example that I'm talking about economics here in business because it's probably what I'm going to work with in the future anyway. So it doesn't matter that it's my passion now. It's probably going to be my future, well, what you would say, employee aspects anyway. So I can, you know, get used to this transition of not having it as a pure passion, but having it something to work with as well, something that's following a schedule. But the trade-off there between working and passion, something that's very interesting, maybe not as key, but I would argue that it's a, well, it's a boost, it's a boost towards your success to work with something you're very passionate about. Then it was the Valentine's special. That was interesting, to say the least. Then we come into the idea that you have limited resources and you need to actually utilize your networking capabilities that you have. The key point to take away from that was probably that we were working with that networking is a huge resource for any founder and for anyone really. So when it comes to utilizing your network, don't be afraid to go to your neighbor or to your next person in your network and ask them for help. And if you don't want to do that, ask for that person's network, so that you can access other people's networking capabilities, so to say, so that all the people in your networking circuit is like keys into different labyrinths of new networks, so that you can utilize your friends' networks and maybe their networks, so that you're expanding it quite quickly. And in that sense, you don't have to know that many people in order to have an efficient and, what you would say, an efficient and great network, because, well, you can use your friends' friends, for instance. So utilizing an existing network and really building your network capabilities and your social skills so that you can actually use that as a resource when starting off in the beginning. And we have quite a few points to cover over the course of this review, so we're going to probably speed it up a bit. So the next point was hiring of human capital, and the important part that we took away from this is that the first person that you hire, the first person who comes into your corporation, is probably the one, or rather is the one, that is going to have the most impact and the most influence on your corporate culture. Are you going to be able to transcend your corporate cultures and your views to this other person, or are you not? And depending on how this goes, are you two going to be able to transcend this or impact and influence this corporate culture to the third and the fourth and the fifth and the 100th person that comes into the corporation? Moving into the next one is choose convince investors. This was quite a boring part. You can go and look that up. Basically, the idea is if you're looking for informal investors, it's probably your friends and family. However, I would argue, and I'm strongly pushing this point, that you shouldn't mix friendship and money, because generally it doesn't work unless you're really successful and everybody loves you. But if it doesn't work, well, then it really doesn't work. So I would argue try to go to a more of a formal institution, such as venture capitalists, angel investors, or a bank. A bank, I would argue, is the best part. Depends on what kind of investment you're looking for as well. Are you looking for experience? Are you looking for resources? Are you looking for capital? Or are you looking for money? Depends on what kind of funds you're raising. And that's moving on to the next point, which is raising the funds of one, which is the entire idea that you are the single person, the single founder in the corporation. So yet again, a founder in singular's particular, a founder's problem then with actually raising funds and raising investment and raising awareness as a party of one. Next one was giving up your life when initially gearing up. And this is the entire point about, well, live and breathe your organization. Yep. Yet again, going back to the point I mentioned in the beginning, you need to live and breathe this organization, because, well, you need to work with this all the time, probably 12 to 18-hour days the first year or so before you actually, yet again, get off the ground with your entire idea. The next point then is going into building your best team. This is yet again kind of relating back to hiring of the hiring process of the first people that are going to get into your corporation, that you manage to pick the people that are best for you and not just best at what they do, but the ones who will actually fit your management team in the future and fit your corporate view and your corporate culture. And then when we're talking about taking the initiative, which is all about, well, you shouldn't just wait around for your idea to pick you. You should pick the idea and you should run with it. That's basically the idea that we're trying to explore there. Take the initiative, go out there, actually do something. Don't wait for opportunity to come to you. Create your opportunity yourself. Then we're moving into delivery of the pitch, let's say, the elevator pitch, which you can go and watch that because it's kind of self-explanatory in a way. And the same goes for the quote-unquote boring stuff, which is the business plan, the financial forecast. And then we talked about this prize video, which was the paradox of time investment at start, which I thought was quite interesting. The idea that when you actually need to put in the most amount of time into your startup, you can't, because you need to have a job at the same time that takes up a huge part of your time in order to financially support this, well, new passion project of yours. And once you start earning money from this passion project, you don't need to put in as much time in your startup, and that is awkwardly probably the same time that you don't need to have a second job either. So you're probably going to free up a lot of space at the same time there. But now we're coming into what did I actually take away from this experience? Well, for once, there were lots of more things to a founder's problem than I initially thought. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I thought it was going to be like a 30-second or 40-second video. Me talking about, well, there are some things about the founder that is problematic. For instance, you need to raise investments alone, and well, it's probably it, right? And you need to put in the time, but it's kind of self-explanatory. But we explored that and we went through it anyway, which means that I can probably work my way out from just a key phrase, which I've been doing the entire time, but something that I deemed to be 30-second material actually turned out to be a week, 2 weeks worth of videos, which is amazing in my world. Maybe you're sitting on the other end of the spectrum here and you're saying, wow, can't you just cover something else? And that is actually why we're breaking it down and taking the review right now, because honestly, I can go on and on and on about the founder's problems, because there were so many nitbits that I thought, well, this is interesting. I can talk about this. I can explore this. This can be inflated. I can take a new initiative and a new perspective on that and bring that in. There were so many things, so many more things to it than I initially thought, which was quite interesting. And I realized that in order to actually show people that you believe in your product, that you believe in your startup, your passion project, you actually need to, and I've known this for a while because we've studied it, but over the course of me looking into this and reading articles about it, it has become more clear that, well, you actually need to invest in it yourself so that other people see that you are investing in it with your own money, with your own capital, with your own time, so that, well, you're showing off that you actually believe in your own project, because if you don't believe in it, why should anyone else? So I made some, some changes, some tweaks. Haven't gone live yet, but probably, or rather hopefully, they will come in during the next week if everything goes as follows. So I've been making some huge arrangements. Yeah, at least for me, they're huge, and they're gonna come up next week probably, and those are partially motivated by this project. So I've learned a lot going over this course of this project, mainly then the idea that, well, you should actually invest in your own project in order to show other people that, well, they should invest in it. Show to other people and other investors that you believe in what you do. Because if you don't, yet again, why should anyone else? Which is quite an interesting point. And I've also seen that there are so many key things when coming up with a startup that it's almost not key anymore, because there's so many things that I consider to be key to a startup survival, that it's almost crucial that you probably should have a team behind it that are looking into each and individual key point, because it's so important that all of those works. And it's probably one of the reasons why startups fails to begin with, because people are losing focus when they start and they're looking at, oh, this is important, no, that is important, no, this is important, and that is important. You need to actually be able to juggle all of these points around that are that important simultaneously as you're doing all of the, what you said, the fluffy stuff in between, which aren't equally as important but are really important anyway. So there are much of stuff that I've opened my eyes for, like, oh my days, I need to do all of these things with the YouTube channel if it's going to go anywhere. And I need to implement that in my own company if I want to start it. And it's a bit nightmarish to see that in front of you and be just like, wow, that's many things, but simultaneously it's kind of fun. It's a challenge. It's a huge challenge. So it's been opening my eyes for a lot of stuff. And most important, or I was gonna say most important, but it's not the most important thing, but a very funny thing, a very interesting thing, at least for me, right, is that we've been passing the 6-month milestone of 183 plus videos. I think it's 182 and a half or something like that, 365 divided by 2. Yeah, we passed that milestone just to see how the format has developed from me just talking about one thing that I probably could have split up into an entire project in the beginning, and now talking about something I didn't thought I was gonna cover for more than 30 seconds and cover that over the course of 2 weeks. It's cool. It's to really see that I've been developing my format and developing the channel, and that people are following on and seeing and listening and taking part and sharing. It's nice. It's a cool experience. So that was everything for the review, mates. There are quite a lot of things I've taken to heart and taken into consideration when starting my own startup and planning my own startup, and some things that I will implement into the YouTube channel, and lots of projects that I hope will go live, as I said, next week. But we will see about that. So, without any further ado, mates, have a nice one, mates. And I'll see you tomorrow in the SNR Saturday News Recap.